I've reviewed hundreds of watches on this channel, and I've always been on the lookout for my perfect watch, a watch that has all of the functionalities that I want out of a wristwatch. Typically, the only watches that really meet those categories would be digital watches. It's extremely rare to find an analog watch that can do it all, but I found one, and today we're going to be taking a look at it. This is the Voyager from Wayforth Watches. Take a look at it and we'll get into it. Hey guys, this is Dave. The channel is Just the Watch, and as always, I'm broadcasting from my home in Iwate, Japan. Today we're checking out a watch from Wayforth, which is a Canadian brand, and this is something that they kind of bill as an adventure watch. I feel like it has something of a motorsports vibe, but the number of features packed into this thing is absolutely incredible. This is a chronograph watch that features an internal rotating 12-hour dual-time bezel. It has a date complication. It's got 100 meters of water resistance. It's got a sapphire crystal. It's got decent lume. So you can really do anything. You can track multiple time zones if you're traveling. You can time things on the chronograph. You can take it swimming. You don't have to worry about breaking it. But the concern you might have in a watch like this is, can you pack all of those features into a watch and still have it actually work and be usable? That's what we're going to be taking a look at in this video. The other concern you might have is the watch reasonably priced? And at least for now, at the time of the release of this video, you shouldn't have to worry about that because Wayforth is running an anniversary sale where the watch is significantly discounted. There's a link to their website down below in the description. And now's as good a time as any to mention that this watch was given to me for free by Wayforth, which is why you saw the paid promotions flag at the beginning of this video. However, as always, they didn't have any control over the content of this review. So let's get right into it. The first thing we got to talk about is the feature set on this watch, because this is one of those very rare watches that does everything that I want a watch to do. And that would be to tell me the time, the date, to have a timing function, and to tell me what time it is in a second time zone. And normally that level of functionality is only going to be found on a smartwatch or a digital watch. But there are a lot of times where I don't want to wear a digital watch. Analog watches just look nicer and more sophisticated, and there's going to be certain situations where they're going to be preferable to wearing a digital watch. And what this normally means is that you're going to have to trade some functionality to get a more elevated and sophisticated style. But with the Voyager, Wayforth has cleverly found a way to pack all of this functionality into a single analog watch by including a watch that has a chronograph function and pairing it up with a dual-time 12-hour bezel. And they also selected a Seiko Mecha Quartz chronograph movement that also features a date. All of this combines to make a beautiful and highly functional travel or adventure watch. Let's take a look and see how some of these functions work, starting with the chronograph. This features the Seiko VK64 Mecha Quartz chronograph, which is a highly accurate and reliable quartz chronograph movement that has a mechanical chronograph module on top of it. This gives you the accuracy and convenience of a battery-operated quartz movement while giving you a lot of the feel of a traditional mechanical chronograph. The chronograph pushers activate with a satisfying mechanical snap that gives you excellent tactile feedback to know that they've been activated, and the chronograph hand glides smoothly across the dial at 5 ticks per second. When you stop the chronograph and reset it, it snaps back to its start position instantly. And given that this movement doesn't feature a running second hand, which might give away the fact that this is a quartz movement, without knowing, you'd have a really hard time telling that this was a battery-powered movement instead of a mechanical movement. This chronograph movement can be used to time things up to 60 minutes, and the second hand will allow you to read down to 1/5 of a second intervals, but you'll need to have pretty sharp eyes to do that. The watch also features a tachometer bezel, something that is commonly found on racing watches, and when used in conjunction with the chronograph will allow you to calculate the average speed over a set distance. Now, I don't really have any need for a tachometer, but that's tradition and it's cool to have on there. It looks great and it's a nice feature to have. But the chronograph itself is extremely useful. It's great to be able to time things in your daily life, and I would use this feature on a daily basis. But as I mentioned earlier, this watch also has a dual time bezel, which is going to give you another layer of functionality. You'll notice that on the Rehaut there is a 12-hour scale which allows you to track a second time zone. Now, because this is a 12-hour scale, you're not going to be able to tell whether it's AM or PM in the second time zone. You'll have to know at least that much, but I think most people who are thinking in 2 time zones usually know at least whether it's day or night in the opposite time zone they're tracking. You can set that 12-hour inner rotating bezel with the second crown at 10 o'clock. This is a bidirectional inner rotating bezel that operates smoothly without clicks. It has a very smooth action with just the right amount of resistance so that the bezel doesn't move on its own. And for me, that 10 o'clock crown was safely tucked out of the way. I never found it interfering with my wrist movements. And I absolutely love 12-hour bezels because there's actually a lot of different things you can do with them besides just keeping track of a second time zone. For instance, you can also repurpose it very easily to track elapsed time. This would give you a second timing option. So for instance, if you had the chronograph running and you had a need to time something different, all you would have to do is align the red triangle on the inner bezel with the minute hand. And then from then on out, the watch's main minute hand would be showing you how many minutes have elapsed since you set it. It's not quite as convenient as a 60-minute timing bezel for this purpose, but everybody already knows how to read minutes on a 12-hour scale because we do it when we tell the time. Finally, this watch has a date, and that's amazing because there's a lot of Mecha Quartz movements that don't have dates, but I always want a date on my watch, so I'm very happy to see that function here. And so with all these features, this watch is one that I can comfortably wear knowing that it will take care of absolutely everything that I would need out of a watch. And there are very few other watches in my collection that I can say that about. Most of the time, whenever I wear almost any other watch, I'm going to run to a situation where I'm going to be thinking, I wish I had the ability to time things, or I wish I knew what time it was in California without having to do the mental calculations in my head. But this watch has me covered for absolutely everything. So functionality-wise, it is great. Let's move on and talk a little bit about the specifications and the design, because those are also very equally important aspects of a watch. But I think Wayforth nailed both of those aspects as well. A brief rundown of the specifications. This watch has the aforementioned Seiko Mecha Quartz movement. It has a sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, features 100 meters of water resistance, a 316L stainless steel case, and some very wrist-friendly dimensions. Basically, from a technical standpoint, this is as good as it gets for chronograph watches. The only way you could really improve on these specifications would be to jump up to a mechanical chronograph movement, but that presents its own challenges. The most affordable option would be to go with a Seagull ST19 based movement, but I've had a lot of reliability issues with those, and I don't tend to like them because of that. And if you look at going to a Japanese or Swiss chronograph movement, your cost is probably going to double or triple pretty quickly. So for the roughly $385 retail price that they're asking, this is an excellent set of specifications. Finally, let's move on to the visual design of this watch, an area that is just as important, if not more important than everything we've talked about so far. A watch that is crammed with this many features could very easily turn out jumbled and difficult to read, but Wayforth did an excellent job of laying everything out in a very clean and pleasing manner. This is a bicompax chronograph movement, so at 9 o'clock you have your 60-minute subdial for the chronograph, while at 3 o'clock you have a 24-hour dial that's synchronized to the main time. Moving out to the very edge of the dial, there are 3 rings that provide additional information. First, you have a minutes and second track that is inside a little trench. This is very detailed, giving you breakdowns of down to 1/5 of a second, which when combined with the smooth sweep of the chronograph hand does allow you to time things accurately down to 1/5 of a second. Outside of that, you have the rehaut, which is where the internal bezel is housed with the 12-hour markings, and then you have an external bezel that has the tachometer on it. On the blue dial version that I have, I believe the bezel insert is stainless steel. It is engraved and very crisply printed. It has a very high quality look to it and does give the watch a premium appearance. Something that I really love about the dial on this watch is the level of depth that is employed. This is a multi-layer dial that has 2 levels to it. The chronograph subdials and the trench in which the chapter ring is housed are both recessed below the main dial. So there's this cool little step down into those sections of the dial, while the indexes are applied so they kind of have a step up from the main dial. This gives the watch a lot more visual interest while also showing off some more advanced manufacturing skills. I also really like the use of color that Wayforth has done here on the Voyager. There's a contrast between the white subdials and the white chapter ring around the outside of the dial that fits well into the racing theme of this watch, with the main dial itself having a very bright saturated blue color that also has a pleasing semi-matte finish to it. This is all topped off with a domed sapphire crystal that has some vintage charm in the amount of distortion that it casts onto the dial. This is particularly noticeable from extreme angles, but even from normal viewing angles, you are going to see some lensing effect on there. I think this is cool, but it also is a little bit distracting. This is kind of a personal preference, and some people might have preferred a crystal without so much distortion. Finally, the dial of the watch does feature loomed hands and indexes, which is another great feature on this watch. You're getting a clean, blue glowing BGW9 application. which is impressively strong for a chronograph watch. On my lume test, this watch scored a 7, which is really good for a non-dive watch. You're definitely getting a good functional level of after dark performance with this application of lume. Let's jump outside of the dial and take a look at the case, which has its own series of nice design refinements. One of the first things that you're going to notice is that there's a lot of little knobs on the side of this case. You're getting 2 crowns and 2 chronograph pushers. These are necessary for the functionality of the watch, but they do give it an interesting silhouette. But I think the positioning on all of them is really well done. The chronograph pushers are very traditionally located at 2 and 4, and the chronograph crown at 10 o'clock kind of looks like the helium release valve on an Omega Seamaster. So nothing looks really that out of place. But my favorite part about the case is the beautiful work that they've done on the lugs to give them this kind of twisted effect. This again is another design touch that is similar to what Omega does on a lot of their watches, and the shape of those lugs combined with the finishing work giving a nice polished bevel to them adds a touch of elegance to this very sporty design. Speaking of finishing, the brushing and the polishing is very well thought out. I like the places that they've applied it and the multiple finishes that they've done, and the overall quality is good, particularly for this price range, and it adds a lot to this case. Finally, let's talk options, because Wayforth is giving you a lot of them, both in terms of strap and bracelet options, as well as dial designs, and even other case finishing with some DLC options. They're offering some very vibrant and colorful dials that evoke the spirit of vintage race cars, while also giving you some more sophisticated and toned down monochrome looks. And when it comes to straps, they're giving you some really quality options as well. Included in the standard price is your choice of either a black or brown rally strap. This is a very high quality strap that is made out of beautiful vegetable tanned leather, which is handmade in Germany. It features the classic rally strap perforations throughout it that again pairs well with this racing vibe. Both the black and brown colors work great with these watches, so it's kind of up to your preference to choose which one you like more. I found myself primarily pairing this blue dial on the reddish brown rally strap. For me, that gives a little bit of a fresher, more laid back vibe compared to the black, which I think is a little bit more aggressive. But if you're more of a bracelet guy, Wayforth has you covered there with the optional upgrade of a 5-link bracelet. At the time I'm recording this, they have the bracelet on sale for about $60, down from its retail price of $80. And at either one of those price points, I think the level of quality is acceptable for the price they're asking. This is a fully brushed bracelet with solid links that features screw pins for adjustment, quick release spring bars, and solid end links. The clasp is somewhat basic. It doesn't feature tool-free micro adjust, but you do get 3 levels of traditional micro adjustment. I prefer the leather strap options, but this is an area of personal preference, and I think Wayforth is doing a great job of catering to a variety of preferences. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up the video for today. Let me know what you think of this watch down below in the comments. And if you are watching this video around the time that it was released, the sale should be live right now. At the discounted sale price, this watch is an easy buy recommendation. Finally, if you're interested in getting a watch-themed t-shirt like this one, you can check it out on my website at justthewatch.com. That's going to wrap up the video for today. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.